Okay, I think we're live officially after much difficulty last night. So hopefully everything is coming through okay. It does say my CPU is at 57%, so hopefully we don't completely crash. But we are live on YouTube, we're live on Twitch, we're live on Kick, we're live on Facebook, and I think that's the four right there. So all this was manual programming after the disaster from last night. So as always, I'm Doug with the Wendibros, and it's funny because whenever I'm on the Wendibros, occasionally we'll get John, but we never really have everybody in the same place at once. So I always feel like whenever I'm talking about the other Wendibros, I feel like I'm talking about the ghosts that we're usually investigating. So, in this case, we're not. All five members of the Wendibros are live tonight, and we're using a different format. Went back to the old school way of OBS and trying to make sure everything is running smoothly. So everybody check, and I think we are good across the board, unless something just completely falls apart. Which I'll be monitoring the chat tonight to make sure. So, if you don't know me, I'm Doug with the Wendibros, one of the founding members. And we talk about all things weird, strange, and spooky. And tonight's subject is on Duendes, and I keep messing that name up. But before we start on that topic and that subject, we're going to go around the room and do a little bit of roll call. So we have Christy tonight. Christy, how are you doing tonight? I was getting worried there for a second. I'm good. I'm doing okay. Doing all right. We have Casey on board. Yeah, Casey was there last night, but he was there in spirit. We couldn't actually get a hold of him. So, but yeah, we got everything set up and look. Yeah, yeah. So and we've done we used to do the live shows in the past, and now it's just and now we're going back into our kind of our roots in a way. And our other founding member and longtime friend of mine since I think the sixth grade, whenever him and I both thought that we were nerds, and it turned out we were both correct on that. John, we're still nerds. Yeah, yeah, wouldn't have it any other way. And then joining us, the mysterious domain expansion, Lord Greg. Yep, yep. Hey, yeah, you were the only one to make I guess a pretty decent contact that night, and you're actually one of our bigger skeptics out there too. So always yeah, yeah, yeah. So if you guys haven't watched that episode, Greg and I had some pretty neat experiences that night. I wouldn't say terrifying or anything like that, but very fascinating. But check out that episode. That is the River House episode. But yeah, but we're live. We're officially live. So, but as these guys are talking, I'll try to. I'm kind of the navigator, the director of everything. So I have all these buttons in front of me. So hopefully I don't fuck something up, and it just falls completely apart on me. And I'll try to keep everything under control as best as I can, which is typically not uh, as in control as I'd like to when it comes to our little group. So big group now. So especially since John, you and I started out with just a very simple broadcast on Twitch whenever we weren't doing gaming videos. Yeah, it is. It is. So tonight's topic is are duendes, and Casey actually picked this topic whenever we had a meeting at my house, and I didn't even know what that was, and they had to explain it to me, and so I began doing a lot of research on it, and Casey made a lot of notes. I made a lot of notes, but did quite a bit of research on it. So to give you the definition of a duende, duendes or singular duende are fascinating mythical beings from Spanish, Portuguese, and especially Latin American folklore. They're small humanoid creatures, often compared to gnomes, elves, goblins, or leprechauns in English speaking traditions. But they have their own distinct cultural flavor, origins, and meaning. The word duende comes from Spanish, likely a shortening of dueño de casa, or the master or owner of the house, suggesting that they were originally seen as household spirits that own or inhabit homes. The concept spread from it might be Iberian, Spain or Portugal folklore to Latin America during colonization, where it blended with indigenous beliefs about nature spirits, forest guardians, and small beings. This syncretism created regional variations across Mexico, Argentina, Guatemala, Belize, Costa Rica, and beyond. Um, Appearance and descriptions vary a lot by region, but common traits include a small stature, often child sized or smaller, sometimes 1 to 4 feet tall. Uh, Christy, you might be a duende. No comment. Okay. Okay, yeah. Human like, but often with exaggerated or unusual features. They have big heads. I might be a duende. Casey might be a duende. We've got monster heads. Large hands and feet, wrinkled and. You're the Nephilim. Uh, Wrinkled, old-looking faces despite small bodies. Pointed hats, sometimes large or mushroom-shaped. Colorful clothing, red, green, or blue, and they have beards, especially in Mexican versions, or glowing red eyes. In some stories, they have no thumbs, like Tata Duende in Belize. You don't have thumbs? Oh, okay. I thought you were saying you don't have thumbs. Well, yeah, you do have glowing red eyes. You do have glowing red eyes. Piercing whistles, mystical songs, or glowing eyes are frequent ways people claim to detect them. The behavior and roles of duendes are classic tricksters. Their personality swings between benevolent, neutral, and outright malevolent, depending on the story and location. Helpful and protective, guardians of nature, forests, animals, or neglected children. They might guide lost people home, especially kids, protect houses, or punish those who harm animals and environments. Miss Cheese and Phone. I'm going to start using that. Uh, they like to play pranks, make noises in walls, braid horses' manes. I don't know if that's a prank. Or lead people astray in woods for fun. Malevolent or dangerous, they like to lure or kidnap children, which is kind of a contradiction because they also, it seems like they also help children too. So I guess it's whatever mood that they're in. Steal souls and breath. They cut off the fingers and toenails of unkempt kids. What the a scary parenting tale in Mexico. They cause illness, madness, or bad luck. Some are said to appear during Lent, Good Friday, or target those who are disrespectful or target those who disrespect nature. In many Latin American households, parents blame missing items or strange noises on duendes, and kids are warned not to wander alone or neglect their grooming. So you don't have a nasty ass and don't wander off if you want to keep duendes at bay. So, anybody want to comment on that or anything you guys that makes pique your interest? Mm. Yeah, yeah. Well, right. I think with like folk tales, I think if you really look at the origins of folk tales, yeah, there's a lot of superstition and lore behind it. But I also believe that a lot of these are warnings and just kind of good life things to do. And so if you have a scary story to back it up, kids are typically going to listen to that more so than listen to their parents. Hmm. Or something's gonna get you. Yeah. Did anything? Yeah. No, no, that's true. I just the whole they're gonna get you thing. Yeah, but I guess that kind of falls into like where we're at too with Appalachia, and there's so many misconstrued stories about Appalachia, and I see it all the time on social media and TikTok and stuff. About you can't do this, you can't do that, you can't do that. Christy and I, we watched a video the other night about now Tanner Connor Jr. Do not look out the window. Don't look out the window. Just keep it shut because there's things out there that will harm you. And it's like the tried and true ones are there for a reason, but it seems like there's like a new Appalachian lore bit every 5 seconds. But no, that's a good point though. Did anything ever get you? No. Bigfoot, Duende. The Duende. Well, the Duende. No, I was going to say the Duende gets my keys and phone all the time though for sure. I'm serious. Dobby. Oh yeah, yeah. We do get the drawers open in the kitchen a lot, and that's a polterbug. Yeah, but it's with that though. Speaking of Dobby, one thing I was talking about last night before our live stream went kind of foobar. They say that these goblin-like creatures are around 1 to 4 feet tall. And I think what scares the shit out of me about it is that they have wings and they fly. And people, whenever you read like the first-hand accounts of it, because I believe it was a reporter that investigated into it, they said, "Oh yeah, they don't mean no harm," And I think one story of it was like an ambulance driver, like said that like they ran out in front of his vehicle and they looked like children, but it turned out like and I think an eyewitness account stated that that they all looked like a Dobby-like creature, and they used the word Dobby from Harry Potter, which I thought was pretty interesting on that end. Um, all right, so duendes serve as a catch-all term for small supernatural beings, often translated as elves, gnomes. Which Greg, you actually touched on that last night. I think that was the first thing you said is that they sound like gnomes, and but I guess with the pointed hats and mushrooms, goblins, pixies, yeah, yeah. Pixies, brownies, or even leprechauns in English, they share traits like small stature, pointed hats, mischievous pranks, household or nature guardians. The other, do y'all talking about all this stuff? Like whenever you start hearing like the brownies thing, makes me think of like the brown lights in the Blue Ridge Mountains, and I can't think of the other mountain in North Carolina. I think it might be Brown Mountain Lights. Um, the other thing that kind of makes me think of whenever you think about nature guardians are like something like sprites or fairies. Yeah, yeah. Have you guys ever been to? Have you all ever actually been out to the Brown Mountain to see the lights in North Carolina? Yeah, we might need to get out there one day. Yeah, personally, I haven't seen it, um, but it's supposed to be pretty interesting. Um, there's a big investigative group, and I want to say like they're called like it's like Bigfoot Unknown or something like that. But they go out there and they look for these Brown Mountain lights, and they claim that they've seen them, but they're pretty adamant about not hearing any kind of debunk behind it either. Um, and I think that it has been pretty much cleared up as if you're standing on top of that mountain and you see these lights pass through the trees, it's actually vehicles passing by on the road below. So it gives the appearance of these brown lights going through. I don't know how true that is. I'd like to see it for myself, but there's people out there that adamantly believe it. I know that whenever we were just starting as a Wendibros, I got a text message about a girl who said that there were dragons in the Blue Ridge Mountains that she could show me, um, and that there were fairies out there too, which whenever John, Christy, and I went to the Euro Shrine, that was one thing that the lead witch at the time there, and excuse me if I'm saying the wrong thing, had stated that she conversed with fairies on a pretty frequent basis. Is that right? I didn't even go all the way down my notes, and actually I wrote on here fairies, or the broader fae are the biggest category. Leprechauns actually fall under the classification as fairies, and this is a solitary type of fairy. Duende are something sometimes equated to fairies too, especially the trickster or household kinds like brownies or pixies. But the term fairy often evokes more ethereal, beautiful winged beings like in Victorian art or trooping courts, uh, contrasting with earthier, uglier, or more goblin like duende or leprechauns. That's not very nice. Poor guys. But that was the thing that I listened that I was kind of paying attention to whenever I was reading it, is that it really reminded me of like leprechauns and fae as a whole of that too. Um, and I guess in a way you can look at leprechauns as being pretty mischievous, and it's not really unlike. How many wishes do you get with a leprechaun? Is it like three wishes too, if you find, or something like that? Am I mixing my lore up? Yeah. Yeah, so I don't know how accurate that, or like, well, I mean, also then like you find their pot of gold too. What do you get the wishes if you find their pot? Throw a shoe at it? Is that true? They threw. Oh, yeah, yeah. Well, it's interesting about leprechauns. Yeah, I mean it's a cop. They're cobblers though by trade, I think. What are you gonna say? Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. I Man, that would suck though if like you come across a leprechaun and they're after us and like we all have to throw our shoes and hike back without shoes. Um, it's a tough crowd tonight. I like the quack just so you could say that. Uh, so, in talking about Duende, go ahead. Yeah. Hmm. Yeah, I didn't even come across that whenever I was looking into it. So I mean, it's funny that in synchronicity is a weird thing, but whenever I mention Nephilim, would that but you said they were fallen angels, right? So I guess go ahead. So I guess on that end though, and I think I saw where like a lot of this was a product of colonization. So would this have been um, uh, colonizers from Spain that maybe brought Christian beliefs over to the indigenous tribes, and that's where that idea came from? Yeah, yeah, that is. I never really. Yeah, well, it's weird though because you wouldn't really like whenever you see. And maybe I'm looking at the wrong book. Whenever I was looking at, through the demonology book, because whenever you hear about mischievous and and potentially harmful, that's kind of like you go towards the more nefarious, which I guess a fallen angel would fall into that category. I'm trying to think of what an angel, because you always, whenever you look at or whenever you read about angels, it always says "be not afraid," but like they have like a million eyes and they're rolling around on flaming wheels. I, well, but and you couldn't even say a cherub because if you go into like the literal cherubs, like they're a lot more terrifying than what they're perceived as, like these short, fat little cherubs. Um, so I don't know. I'm trying to think of which angel could possibly that could fall into. Um, hmm. Yeah. Well, that's definitely interesting. Yeah. The thing is though, is that it seems like Dewinde. There's a certain fairy tale that comes to my mind whenever I think about it. You guys know what I'm thinking about? Rumpelstiltskin. Yeah, yeah. Well, I mean, think about it. So you got Rumpelstiltskin. Um, he's there, and he has this perception of being there to help at first. Um, and Christy probably knows more about the fairy tale side of this than I do. Um, um, which she, yeah, so Rumpelstiltskin in that. But so like Rumpelstiltskin, they drive like a hard bargain for that too. They throw tantrums and they're volatile and they have trickster personalities. And I'm trying to think, what was the story behind Rumpelstiltskin again? Like it was he was it they spin hair? Was that right? I'm trying to. Was it straw into gold? Yeah, yeah. So yeah, he could spin straw into gold. That was it. That was it. So he could spin straw into gold, but I think that he demanded like her firstborn son. Was that right? And his power breaks. That yeah, that's right. And then I think that if you could, I lost you there. I'm sorry. Yep, yep. So I would probably put Rumpelstiltskin in that kind of category though too. I think that he would definitely fall into that because mischievous, trickster, deceptive, short. So um, let's see, and then we go, and so Casey, whenever you mentioned the fallen angel side about it, I guess to bounce off of that, whenever I was actually doing my research into it too, I was trying to see if there was anything, in the world of demonology, if anything could be Abrahamic within that too. And it's awesome that you mentioned the fallen angel aspect of it because I never really would have, I never came across that. But if we look at Abrahamic religions, uh, uh, predominantly Islamic and pre-Islamic Arabian folklore are supernatural beings created from smokeless fire. Uh-oh. Greg's saying that he can't hear any of us on YouTube. Except for me. That's weird. You're coming in. Yeah, you're coming through in the desktop audio just fine. Hopefully that's not everybody. Are you able to hear music coming through? Odd. That's so weird. Yeah, it's coming in just fine on you. Cause yeah, like I can actually see your audio coming through just fine. Let me see here. Application audio capture. Yeah, my CPU's going crazy right now. Well, I hope I didn't lose all of that. Okay, can you guys try talking again?
I'm going to try talking again now.
I am also talking.
Okay. Can you guys hear yourself on the stream?
It's getting ready to catch up.
Okay. Yeah, because I'm captioned directly from Discord.
Yeah, I can hear it now.
Okay, cool. Well, that sucks. We done a lot of talking since then. All right.
Yep.
Alrighty. Okay, so, going to pre-Abrahamic, we have Arabian folklore. Jinn are supernatural beings created from smokeless fire, scorching wind, distinct from humans, made of clay, and angels made of light. They're not inherently demons in the Western sense, though some are parallel race with free will societies and life cycles, much like humans. Key traits that can pique your interest. They jinn, but they do live sentient lives, and they also have their own society. They can form tribes. They have kings and queens. They follow religions. Some are Muslim, Christian, or pagan. They marry, breed, raise families, and even have jobs or trade. They eat, and their diet mostly consists of bones, dung, or specific foods like dates. They drink and engage in play or mischief. Their communities are said to exist in hidden realms like deserts, ruins, oceans, or invisible dimensions overlapping ours. So I think that's pretty interesting, because it seems like whenever we do an episode on anything, I always find that John and I always end up to interdimensional something or another at one point. Friggin' quantum immortality and quantum physics. And
I've always found...
Go ahead, Greg.
These dates taste like shit. Damn.
let's eat shit instead of
these
the dates.
Shit tastes like dates.
Yeah.
Yeah, it seems like they what I'm reading, it seems like they're believed not to interfere with humans much, and they live mostly in desolate or abandoned places.
Mm-hmm.
It's only when they're angered or disturbed then they take revenge on humans. So, pretty interesting.
But looking at the Western culture too, here lately in Western culture, jinn have really started to catch on as well too. In fact, I talked to a former investigator in Knoxville, and she believed that jinn were responsible for everything that happens in a house. It's never ghosts or spirits or anything like that. It's always jinn. And I looked at her kind of funny because I was like, well, that seems more like a cultural thing. I don't really see how jinn would correlate with Western culture. But if you look at it in the way that we're looking at duende, or we're looking at leprechauns or gnomes or fae, I don't know if it's kind of overlapping. So maybe she wasn't incorrect on her usage of the word jinn, but we just know them in Western culture as, something very different than that. But the longevity and mortality, one thing I thought that was interesting too is that even though they live much longer than humans, they do pass away. They have natural death. They can live for centuries, or they can live for 1,000 years, but they do age and they do die eventually, sometimes from natural causes or conflict. And it almost reminds me of like something biblical in a way, because if you remember in the Bible, at the beginning, of the Bible with Adam and Eve, Moses, they all lived like these, and I'm not saying that they were jinn, but they all lived like these hyper elongated lives. I don't know if there's any I don't know if there's any kind of correlation in that, but if these things are ancient, that they can practice their own free use of religion, and that if in the way that they consider demons, but they're not really considered that over there. It's funny because Christy and I were always hopping on paranormal videos, and the one thing that we always fall into are the videos that involve these Middle Eastern investigators, and they're always like Shmila, and like they accuse everything of being a jinn, like doors slamming, things running around, things falling over. It's always jinn that they're chasing through there. But and if you haven't watched those videos, I shouldn't say that, but they are hilarious because it's like Shmila, you guys are assholes, and like it's and in the Philippines, I think that they even have ideas of duende and jinn. And their belief on these creatures is that you're supposed to, rather than run from them, you're supposed to chase them and scream obscenities at them to scare them away. So, like in the Philippines, they're running around screaming obscenities at these.
I like that.
Yeah, maybe that's what we should do. No, maybe we shouldn't. We try to be respectful. Try to be bros. We should find
something.
Go ahead, John.
Oh no, I was just gonna. You finish what you're saying. Finish.
So maybe we should do like an adopt a duende day.
Oh right.
Yeah.
Something interesting about Middle Eastern beliefs for jinn. They believe that, or some people in the Middle East believe that sleep paralysis is caused by jinns, and most people they attribute like most mental disorders and mental illnesses to jinn, like mood disorders, OCD, epilepsy, things like that. So that's pretty interesting.
Is that still practiced today, or like is that still a pretty common belief?
This is talking specifically about people in Egypt. Some people in Egypt believe that sleep paralysis sufferers are they're by jinns. There was a 2013 study by Cambridge neuroscientists, and they found that as many as 48% of those who experience sleep paralysis in Egypt believe it to be an assault by a jinn. So Apparently, some of them would recite verses from the Quran during sleep paralysis to prevent future jinn attacks. But this isn't across the board. It's just
Yeah.
something they found.
It is interesting though, like with the concept of if jinn can, I guess, be good and do good, and if they can practice religion, I wonder if I would assume that's something that's enacting those kind of afflictions on people, probably aren't of the Quran, but if they were, if that would even be effective on them. It's just I don't know. It's got me philosophical right now.
Yeah, no, interesting thought.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I would. That's weird. I don't know. Like, cause I mean, I guess on that end, like even in like in Abrahamic religions, if it's not of God, would it affect them if they believe in God? I don't know. That's strange. Um, the other thing I thought was interesting too is that with the idea of duende and these little creatures, they all kind of share a similar thing in common. Um, but it varies depending on the way you're looking at it too. Is that they also will have animalistic forms, tails or fur, and that usually aligns with a manifestation if you do see one. Um, but they are known to be hybrid creatures to scare or test humans. The other thing too is that a jinn can change their appearance to appear as any creature, animal, or human as well too. But if you look at, I guess, the cross-cultural parallel, it seems like folklore all have these certain archetypes, but just different way of saying things too. The yakshas in Hinduism and Buddhism are nature spirits, and they can be benevolent or mischievous as well too. And they are often compared to jinn. And then, and I might be butchering this, Chanikes, share the guardian and trickster vibe, but that's also Mexican forest spirits. But in a global sense, they could all stem from ancient human attempts to explain weird phenomena, whether that's shadows in the woods, mental afflictions, lost items, and then John, right here at the very bottom of my notes, sleep paralysis. So, it's also interesting to think too is that, back in much earlier times, the idea of incubi, and sitting on your chest. They would attribute it to incubi, and I wonder how much of that was actually sleep paralysis as well too, and or just very vivid dreams. And they, I don't know if incubi would possibly fall in that too, but they've also been described as short, hairy, gnome-like creatures in different contexts as well too.
Mm-hmm.
So let's go to Japan.
Yeah, I would guess like back in the past when they didn't have so much scientific learnings and things, they would be pretty quick to just anything unexplainable is of course supernatural, and so
and it's weird how history repeats itself because I think that we're still seeing a lot of that today, more so than we have in recent years, and it's funny because you take, and it's not to get political or anything like that, but like take our economy right now, and so like if we look at the idea of not the idea but the fact of the Great Depression. So during the Great Depression, when people were financially burdened, they didn't have a lot, and they were relying on any means necessary. They saw a rise of occultism during the Great Depression. So if you look at our economy today and the way the world is and the bad news, you start seeing more and more folks going to occultism and blaming a lot of folklore for a lot of our misfortunes that are out there too. And that's me bouncing off your point of back in those days when folks were attributing basically any kind of affliction to that of being supernatural. I try not to be on social media as much as possible, But with the gig that we're doing, you know, you always kind of want to keep your eyes and ears open to see if anything strange comes along. But I keep reading all these new rules about, you know, occultism and folklore and spiritualism, you know, and people are flocking to that more and more now. But I guess in times of peace and times of prosperity, I wonder, you know, and it could be something attributed to negativity, you know, where we kind of lower our frequencies and we kind of fall into that I guess that supernatural trap. Um, are we feeding this, and that's why these things come back? Um, and that makes me wonder too, with like the floods in North Carolina last year, whenever they had the goblin sightings, and there were multiple sightings saying that they were falling out of red clay and uh, that they were being spotted. It and could that have been mass psychosis? Could that have been mass induced stress where one person heard it and they said, "Oh, okay, well, I saw goblins too," and that person says, "Oh, I saw goblins." Um, it just makes me think that in times of strife, that you know these kind of things usually come a little bit more. They become more prominent. I guess what I'm trying to say.
I mean,
Right.
yeah, it sounds like another way of like people explaining a lot of really traumatic experiences in a way
Mhm.
that, you know, was comfortable to them. Or maybe not comfortable, but just kind of makes sense
A way of processing
in a
it.
way that
Yeah,
they can deal with. Yeah, yeah, processing.
yeah, and that's true too. I mean, like there's certain scenarios where you get hit with so much trauma that you completely fabricate. Hey, traveling fools, hope you're doing well tonight. We're talking about the wind days, and we are talking about well, right now we're talking about a little bit of everything involving little creatures across the world. um, but yeah, I think you hit the nail on the head there too. I think that it's all processing trauma, and in times of trauma, you know, there's moments where you can completely fabricate an entirely alternate story, or maybe even like a fantasy type of thing where that didn't really happen, but your mind said, okay, in order to process this, this is the way I'm perceiving it. And I do think, you know, to touch on what John said, um, we didn't understand things back then, so of course the only thing we could blame it on was the supernatural. All right, uh, Casey, if you're still with us, I was talking about the North Carolina floods and the little people. And the other thing I wanted to touch on, you may be able to attribute a little bit more to this, or contribute a little more to this than I can, was the Cherokee little people.
Yeah, I think this is truly fascinating. I never heard about it until recently. I saw like a TikTok video. I'm sorry I can't attribute to what video or who posted the video. But yeah, most of the information for this comes from word of mouth, specifically from like old timers in the 20s and 30s, specifically in like Western North Carolina. Um, but there was an author, Mary Joyce. She wrote Cherokee Little People Were Real. And she got a lot of firsthand accounts from people that are no longer alive, um, and specifically around Western Carolina University. And just pretty interesting to me. Um, I think you had mentioned in your notes about another author from the late 1800s. Is that correct? They had talked about this some.
I'm looking at my notes. I know I sent them to you. I'm trying to see here. Yeah, yes.
Oh, I see it. I see
Yep.
it. James Mooney.
Yep. Stories and Legends of Cherokee's Tales, collected notably by James Mooney in the late 1800s, which painted them as benevolent but very powerful creatures.
So, like, along with the other Duende, they were very similar in build, but these specifically look like, excuse me, around 3.5 feet tall, but they were like dark complexion, dark hair, looked like little Cherokee people, which I thought was pretty fascinating. I also found like there were potentially two other variants of the duende there, or goblin, or gnome, whatever you want to call them. Some were like red bearded, kind of like your stereotypical leprechaun, and you also had the moon-eyed people, which is pretty fascinating in itself, which were blue-skinned, large eyes, more nocturnal.
Yeah, I'm glad you touched on that.
Pretty fascinating.
That's what I was
topic
going to
in and
say.
of itself.
Now the Moon Knight people didn't the Cherokees pretty much say like you do not go near them, like you do not associate with them?
As far as I know, yeah, it looked like they actually, even from some reports, they kind of were instrumental in driving them out, or if not killing them off completely, at least pushing them back out of their area. But along with that, kind of, this goes back some, but I didn't know this until I was reading, but some people think that the Cherokee weren't native to this region. They actually were around the Great Lakes region and potentially had some strife with some other groups there, and they pushed their way down south to the Appalachian region and settled, and that's when they discovered the Cherokee Little People, which I don't have a term for what they would have called them. I don't know if you had one or not.
No, let me look at my notes real quick. I don't think I had anything in there. I think that's specifically what did she say? Like on that video that she sent me, I think she said the old timers, but they called them Cherokee Little People. And last night, I think Greg and Christy thought I was saying like, yeah, they're pretty little people. But what I actually meant to say was that they were all described as like actually pretty but little people.
Yeah,
correct.
Yeah, and so like they weren't like like anything like ghoulish or anything. I heard the quack who's chiming in.
They were called, and I'm probably going to butcher this, Yunwi Sunsti?
Yep.
Yeah, I think you're right. It was the Yunwi,
Okay, cool.
the Yunwi Susi. Yeah.
It's the
Meaning little people. I see it now. Okay.
Yeah, they're known to have long hair, love music, and sometimes reveal themselves as tiny child-sized figures.
In which I think
And
like
stories suggest that they aided people during the Trail of Tears.
oh well, that's a definite interesting twist. Huh. You kind of wish that you can kind of go back in time and see if that stuff was real because, just the way humans are, we're known for destruction and everything too. I did read like on that side of the Cherokee Little People was that they would burrow tunnels, specifically in red clay because it was easily manageable, and that I think it would go between 8 to 16 inches. Is that right, Casey?
Yeah, let me check. 18 inches to 3.5 foot tunnels.
Oh, okay, so I was way off. Yeah.
And specifically, they were arch tops, so they were like rounded. So they had discovered tunnels when they were building Western Carolina University, and they were still in great shape. Looked like they still were in use. They were, I guess because of the arched shape, they were able to stay intact.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah. Yunwi Sundi. Pronounced roughly Yunwi Junsti. Or Yunwi Junstiga. Meaning little people. So what do you guys think? I mean, do you all think that these folks could be out there? Like, do you think? I guess I guess what I want to hear is your all's opinion on the supernatural, and I suppose it's not unlike cryptids in a way. Like if you're out there discovering cryptid, like we know, and I don't know if this is a derogatory thing to say, but like pygmy tribes, like we know there's been sightings of things like that in video footage. Um, do you all believe that there could be something like that out there?
As far as like in America, I don't know. I find it very unlikely that there would be like hidden groups of people like that we just haven't detected at this point. But maybe there. I mean, America is a large landmass. Like there's a lot, and we haven't really populated a whole lot of it. So it's a possibility.
Yeah, I kind of agree with that completely. I just think looking back, every culture in the world, no matter if you were on
Yeah.
like the South American continent or you were in Iberian Peninsula or the Middle East or Japan, all had some similar story of some small creature of some supernatural origin.
Yeah, and I think that you both made really good points there. Like if you look at like the idea, and this sounds silly, and I sound like I'm going off the rails here, but like if you look at like the idea of dragons, there's been cultural sightings of things that are attributed to dragons, which we could probably, if we wanted to go archaeological on it, could be attributed to dinosaurs that possibly made it, to the human age. I don't know how much I buy into that, but I think that whenever you start having different cultures that did not even know each other from different parts of the world, and they all have correlating stories, it's hard to kind of dismiss that as saying that this was never real and it never existed. And to Greg's point, the U.S. is massive. The U.S. is very massive. And there's there's parts of it that we have not really been able to access. Primarily, if you look at certain mountains, and even if you look at like certain preservation points, there's just parts that we don't really touch or access, and they're fairly remote. I would say that if there was something like that out there, that would be the areas that they're in. Some places in America are inaccessible. I don't know if I still don't know if I buy the idea of Bigfoot, but I guess as far as these. And the thing is that if you want to go in like, oh, well, they're neutral, or they can be evil, or they can be tricksters, or they can be very good and helpful, what does that sound like to you guys?
That just sounds like human nature. Like anybody can have,
Yes. You hit
any kind of.
Yep.
Yeah, like anybody can be anything. There's no one set, I guess like point on a spectrum of morality. Anybody in any group can be one thing or another thing or another thing.
Yeah. I was hoping that you would. I was hoping one of you guys would get what I was saying there. These sound very human-like in nature. I don't think that. I think that if we take the supernatural side away, I think that what we're dealing with is something very human. And like humans, we come in different shapes, sizes, colors. We can be mischievous. We can do great good. We can also do great evil. We can be very greedy and be very self-oriented, or we can put ourselves out there. And I think what I really started hitting on that with was whenever Casey had mentioned that they helped navigate the Trail of Tears. I don't think that there's anything out of the way for something like that. Are they burrowing into clay and stuff like that? I'm not sure about that, but I think it's like anything. We attribute something supernatural to something that we don't understand, which kind of goes back to what John was saying. Anything that we don't understand, our brain's trying to make sense of it, whether it's whether it's an intelligent idea or a very non-intelligent idea. But yeah, I would almost say that these seem very human-like to me. But we want to, since it's different, we want to put a supernatural spin on it. It's very ableist.
And that's just kind of like how folklore kind of comes about. Is just like, you see something unexplained, you try to explain it, and then the story gets passed on. It kind of evolves, and then at some point, certain aspects of the stories get set in stone a little bit. So that's just how I see like a lot of mythologies and folklore coming about. Just people trying to explain something, other people latch onto that, maybe add a little bit to it. And so like a lot of these things can just be explained by, oh, this weird encounter, let's tell this story.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, well, did you guys ever in school, did your teacher ever do the game where you get everybody in a circle and you tell them a sentence, you tell a sentence to the first kid, and then it's their responsibility to tell the kid next to them, then they tell the next kid, and they tell them. By the time you get to the very end of it, it's this completely wildly different thing than what it started out as.
Yeah, telephone.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I don't think it was ever called telephone, but yeah, I whenever I went there, but yeah,
that's what they called it when I was in school.
Yeah, well, Greg, you're younger than us. We didn't have telephones back then.
I don't believe that.
No,
at all.
We just had mail. Yeah. No, it's but yeah, I think that's it. I think that's how folklore. I think folklore is essential. I think that we need it in order to preserve these stories. But I think it's also important to look at folklore with a lens of scrutiny. Even going back to the Bible, I think whenever I want to say it was one of Jesus's disciples. He said, "Jesus, why do you talk in so many metaphors? Why don't you just speak literally?" He goes, "Well, if I speak literally, they're not going to understand it." And I don't know why that popped in my mind to say, but it's I think that's the way that we all kind of look at it. It's just people will tell a story, and then that story becomes something completely crazy or different. I think that again, and that could explain the cultural differences as well too, and why they are so similar, but they do differentiate. You have a different people telling different story, or telling their different versions of the same story.
Yeah, absolutely.
Mm-hmm. Trying to see if there's anything else on my end for that. I know I was about to go to Japan, but then I really wanted to touch on the Cherokee Little People first. I would, out of everything we've talked about tonight, I would definitely say that the Cherokee Little People would be the one that I would buy the most, especially since there's been so many accounts and a lot of eyewitness accounts as well too. So look
Honestly,
at
I don't know
something
enough
I'd like
about
to
them.
add to that.
Yeah.
I was just going to say, like, they found a couple artifacts around that area. One, you all can look it up at another time, but one's called the lead head. It's heavy. This kid found it in like 1940, I believe. But it looks like a alien, or like what we consider a leprechaun. And it's kind of two pieces that are fused together. It's just very, very interesting. Something to look at. Not saying it's anything.
the lead head.
What is it exactly?
It's called the lead head.
Huh. The lead head.
Yeah, lead head. It was found on Balsam Mountain Ridge.
Boston Mountain Ridge.
I'm trying to picture it. Like, what? Give me a description. Like, what is this?
it looks like a little medallion almost, but it was made of lead. It was super heavy, but fit in your hand, and it looks like like I said, like an alien or what we consider a leprechaun or a gremlin, anything like that. Doesn't have a beard, but
Weird. I
it's got
can't.
pointy ears.
I just tried to look.
It's something
Okay.
pretty kind of cool.
Yeah, I tried to look it up and I couldn't find anything for that either. Um,
I have a picture of it. I could show you all later, but
yeah, we'll try to drop that in later. But you kind of touched on something. It looks alien. And whenever we went to, and it's weird because I always feel like the things that we talk about eventually circle back. Whenever we were at the Euro Shrine, we got onto the subject of the Golden Dawn, which was founded by a Lester Crowley, and Lester Crowley summoned an entity that was very impish-like, had a large head, pointy ears, and beady eyes. And I can't remember the name of it. He summoned another entity which only classified itself as the Abyss. And it just that And then I'm thinking about the falling angel thing at the very beginning whenever you're talking about it. And I always hate going to aliens, but what if it's aliens? Well, what was it? There was the it was like the goblins that invaded that farmhouse, and I want to say, was it out in Arkansas? And like they had a
I have no idea what this is. This sounds this
I-
sounds very interesting.
well, Christy and I watched it actually. I don't know if Christy can remember what I'm talking about, but I think it was back in the '60s.
What was it?
Do you remember the? It was about the goblins that invaded somebody's house, but they also thought they were aliens. Was that out in Arkansas?
Don't remember.
I'm trying to Google it. Ah, yeah, here it is. The Hopkinsville Goblins incident of 1955 was in Kentucky.
Oh yeah.
And it was the most famous real-life goblin invasion story where a rural family claimed small otherworldly beings with large eyes surrounded their farmhouse, creating panic in local legend, inspiring mass UFO lore and even themes in later sci-fi, though often described more as alien encounters than traditional folklore goblins. During this event, two families, the Suttons and the Taylors in Kelly, Kentucky, reported being terrorized by small, metallic-skinned creatures with huge eyes, long arms, pointed ears after a strange light appeared. The invasion. Beings allegedly appeared into windows, scurried across the yard, and were shot at by the family before fleeing, though police found no alien craft or bodies. The legacy of it became a classic UFO case, often called the Hopkinsville Goblins case, blurring lines between alien encounters and folklore and influencing mass pop culture. But yeah, it was a very rural area out there too. And then if we go off of Native American legends, some local lore mentions small silver creatures in Native American legends, which that's interesting. After everything that we've been talking about. But the Hopkinsville case is distinct from these traditional stories. But I remember that's reading or watching that, and they were talking about how they're essentially shooting these Hopkinsville goblins, but it was in the middle of the night. And if we think that there was light and moonlight, and if we have these creatures that are burrowing in the caves, we can almost think that the light was glistening off of them on what could be muddy, wet bodies, giving them like a silver appearance.
Ooh, I like that. Yeah, That makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
I always like it whenever, like, when the supernatural can kind of also coincide with, like, aliens. Like,
Mm-hmm.
it's just like it could be one or the other. It's interesting to me to like hear stories about that. Like, just being able to explain it from one side or the other.
Yep.
That reminds me of the docu-series, I think it's called Hellier. Very similar to that. Takes place in, like, I believe it's in Kentucky.
Kentucky's weird, man.
Yeah.
I don't think I've heard of Hellier, though.
I believe it's, can't remember where I watched it, but I think it was like aliens, kind of similar to that. It's like small aliens attacking. Not attacking, but like terrorizing homes.
Which is not, no, yeah, I
very
mean, but
rural
that's not
area.
unlike everything that we've been talking about, and I think that you just said
Exactly.
you just said the word rural. All these cases take place in rural areas, and then we also talked about parts of the U.S. that are very desolate and by themselves. I think that if there was going to be anything like that out there, in Kentucky, I mean, there's a lot of weird sightings out there. I don't know. I want to experience a duende now. I want them to appear.
Be careful.
Be careful what I
Yeah,
wish
be
for.
careful what you wish for.
Well, but I mean, so I think I talked a little bit about it last night. So there's like specific ways to summon a duende if you were going to do that. Like, here's the thing about me is that when it comes to the supernatural and paranormal and all things weird, because we're not just ghost guys. When I say I want to experience that stuff, I'm not saying like I want to be tortured or chased or haunted or this and that. It's that I want to believe so bad, and I want something like that. I want to be able to maybe experience it from a distance. But if you look at,
You want to believe?
I want to believe. I think we all want to believe in this group. Have we experienced separately, some things that are strange? Sure, but nothing like a mischievous little creature, and it just makes me wonder, Lou. You take Kentucky, and you take the Hopkinsville Goblins case, where their immediate thought was to just shoot these little creatures, and it wasn't even like
I mean, yeah.
yeah, and that's the thing too is their immediate thought, especially here in Appalachia. Well, I don't get it, so shoot it. It's but then you take like and I think that's a kind of a testimony to how times have changed too, with our acceptance towards certain things as well. So like if you look at like the floods in North Carolina and Kentucky. Whenever they're having these goblin sightings, a lot of folks are saying you just leave them alone. They're not going to hurt anybody. Like they're a-okay. They don't mean any harm. They're just trying to survive like the rest of us. I don't know. It's so yeah. Whenever I say I want to experience something like that, yeah. I mean, I'm going to give Dobby a sock.
Right.
Yeah, he's going to be a free elf. Yeah, I got to rant and I lost my train of thought there. Oh yeah, somebody a duende. So there's ways that you can summon a duende, and this is going to kind of tie into it also. So if we look at, well, I'll roll into that. So to summon a duende, you have to turn the lights off in your house completely, and you can only have very dim lights. So what they suggest is that you light very few candles, just enough for them to see. Clear your mind and think about something that you need done around your house. It could be cleaning, it could be help with homework, it could be help with anything around the house. And they will usually appear is what it states. And in modern terms, they've also said like just use your cell phone light, but dim the cell phone light. they are supposed to appear, and they will help you out with anything that you need, whether it's cleaning or just advice, or and like I even read like they'll even help do your homework, and a part of that is that as long as you treat them right, you treat them with respect, and you give them a reward at the end, there won't be any bad that comes from it. But if you don't do any of those things, then the mischievous and malevolent side comes out too, which also sounds very human. I guess what I'm getting at though is that if they are burrowing into caves, and then you have the Hopkinsville goblins at night, and they're being flooded out in North Carolina and Kentucky, and this whole thing is stating you have dim lights. What does that sound like? Sounds like they're nocturnal. So I would assume,
Yeah,
Night
no,
people.
yeah, that
yeah.
like I had that thought when you're saying like dim lights and just enough so where they can see. Like yeah, that I kind of had that thought, but then it just vanished out of my head. But yeah, I see where you're coming from.
Yeah, they sound like nocturnal beings. Now, if I'm not mistaken, weren't the Moon-Eyed people strictly nocturnal also?
Yeah, 100%.
Now, but now now the Moon-Eyed people though, they were of what we would consider like average human size though, or am I wrong on that?
I'm not sure. I stuff that I read said they were small, but I didn't read into it that much.
So if we're looking like they're burrowing caves, and if they're coming out at night, and supposedly, which it doesn't sound like in Hopkinsville that they were attacking really anything, they're just being shot at, bless their hearts. Um, I wonder if they could be. Oh, I heard the quack.
The Moon-Eyed people, they were described with like pale skin, and they were bearded, and they just had poor daytime vision.
Hmm.
See, that almost sounds more not so much nocturnal, but maybe like I mean, I kind of hate to say it this way, but like subterranean.
Hmm. Yeah.
Like the first thought that comes to my head is mole people.
Like living in caves.
Well, a lot of them are said to live in caves or under the ground, so it's very interesting. I mean,
Well, here's an interesting fact too, is that I'm actually reading this right here. It is believed that the Moon-Eyed people may have actually migrated to North America, from Welsh countries and Norse countries as well too. So I was trying to think if there's accounts of the Cherokee stating that the Cherokee little people were kind and would help out, and they got along with them, but they hated the Moon-Eyed people. I wonder if it had something akin to the Cherokee way of thinking, because you would see colonization and people with fair skin, white skin, and you would attribute that as being bad. So what if they were kind of one and the same, but they just didn't like it because obviously it just attributed to something bad. I haven't looked up why the Cherokee hated the Moon-Eyed people, but
I think I can't give you facts, but I believe some people think that the Moon-Eyed people were actually, like you said, actually settlers that had come previous from some European country, and that they just had the light skin, and that's where the Moon-Eyed people origin actually came from. There's a lot of info on that if you kind of dig into it, but it's all still conjectured, and there's no like actual facts on that topic.
which I am reading right here that whenever the Cherokee actually migrated into the Appalachian area, that the Moon-Eyed people were already there, and so they expelled them.
Yes.
That's interesting. I don't know. I would assume that they're probably one and the same though, but
What I'm reading right now is that the Cherokee did not like them because they didn't fit the spiritual order of things.
so I think that kind of comes back to, or circles back to what I was saying. I think that because yeah, like they probably saw that skin tone and the fair hair and everything as something probably evil.
And a lot of people
Well, and
think
also
that
they're very sun and moon, day and night, life moving in rhythm. Moon-eyed people were seen as unnatural,
Hmm.
and they were there before the Cherokee.
So it could have been a pre cultural bias.
Yeah, and they saw them as an imbalance against nature, and imbalances against nature brings disaster.
Hmm. We're gonna have to find a Moon Knight person.
see a lot of people speculate that Fort Mountain in Georgia
Mm-hmm.
was the final battle between the Cherokee and the Moonite people. Again, there's no evidence, there's no
I
bodies, no skeletons, no.
So you know what else is interesting though is that the way the Cherokee used to identify people if they were walking up on them is that they would hold up their hand like this, expecting somebody else to hold their hand up like that, and it wasn't to say hi, it was to see how many fingers that they had, and if they held up something like that, it was unnatural or unhuman. So whenever we look at Duende and the features of across the globe, a lot of these creatures had 3 to 4 fingers, or they were missing their thumbs.
Yeah, I was about to say the thumb thing.
Yeah, the thumb thing. Um, that's clever. All right, I think we've cracked the case on the Duendes. I don't think we did, but it's very interesting. I'd love to go out into areas where they've been spotted and see if we can see anything like that. We'll definitely have to get some night vision
Oh
goggles.
yeah, absolutely. That'd be great.
Yeah, have to get some night vision goggles and some. I was going to say shovels, but I feel like that would be insensitive. We're not going to dig up their habitat. But if we find a hole that's
Yeah, we're already stalking them. We don't need to break and enter.
well, if we have a hole big enough, we can let Christy climb inside.
Hey, let me spin you on something else that's kind of related to this, but not so much. Is Caney Fork in North Carolina?
Yeah.
There is a rock called the Judicola Rock, and it is the most heavily petroglyph, heavily, I don't know what you want to call it, but it has more petroglyphs on it on that rock than anywhere else west or east of the Mississippi.
Mm-hmm.
What was that called?
Right in our back door, Judicola Rock. And
Judicola
there's
Rock.
also potentially a Bigfoot called the Judicola Giant. So just kind of a little spin in that same general area.
We'll have to go check that out. Yeah, Judicola Rock. Yep. Cullahee, North Carolina. It has a 4.8 stars.
Pretty good.
Oh, they're doing well for themselves.
Yeah, they got good reviews. Yes, it's about a 2.5 hour drive. It's not bad. Road trip. All right. Well, guys, I think I'm about ready to wrap it up on here. I guess we can go around the room. Personally, I think in talking about it, I don't think that it's as common as it used to be, but I'm willing to say that I can't say confirm that it may be true, but I'm leaning more towards I kind of believe in all the accounts, and I believe that there is something more to this, and that I'm going to say that there's a strong possibility of something like this out there.
It's certainly something worth looking into.
Yeah, I concur.
Christy?
Yeah, I
Joe?
definitely believe. I think there's just too many. I think there's just too many different accounts that have occurred around the world in different, um, you know, different geographical locations separated by cultures. You have different mentions in Spain and
Yep.
and the Native Americans here, and Africa and Egypt, and it's just all over the world. You have these basically same stories, same kinds of creatures, and I mean, it may be human nature for everyone to just kind of assume it's the same thing, but I don't know. I think they're definitely out there. I think there's a lot of magic in nature and things like that. I've purposefully not talked a lot tonight because I didn't want to get super deep into a different topic. So,
Well, no, that's what we're here for. You might. What are you thinking?
no, I'm just with the Wiccan religions, they believe that there's more than just that, but that's one I know quite a bit about. And then there's different Celtic religions, and they all believe in these different types of fairies, so to speak. So, one of the interesting things looking around is that the term goblin often gets interchanged and used for fairy or fae creatures in different translations. So it's really interesting that I think that you have this blanket term that kind of spans different cultures, and they all kind of have different things. Because when you like dig down into the duendes, there's like they had like 15 or 14 different like kinds. They had different kinds, and they all did different things. Some were mischievous, some were helpful, some were just completely neutral. And so I definitely think, well, I want to believe. So
Oh yeah,
I'd love to
yeah.
I'd love to meet with.
Yeah, same. I mean, that's how I feel. I'd love to meet with them. It's and learn more about the world. Yeah, I don't know if I would say. I think that what we're dealing with is something that's probably more human than we give it credit for in nature, especially with like the mix of emotions and what we're perceiving as what they do. I'm with you 100% on everything you just said. Christy?
What?
I believe she stepped away for a moment. That was one reason why I spoke up.
There's going to be a test on
Yeah,
this.
she had to step away for a minute.
No. Oh, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. What do you think about all
I'm
this, Christy?
sorry. This is probably one where what I would want to believe in the most, to be honest. Like, just the whole, like, duendes, fae, goblins, that kind of thing. That's the one thing that I would love to know if it was real or not.
Short but profound. I completely agree with everything that you just said. So, yeah, that's and the thing
I
that
was trying to wring a cat.
oh, okay. The thing that I would say is that if you look at the subject, and big thank you to Casey for picking the subject, is that we've like the duende, it goes across the globe. We've also gone across so many different types of lore and so many, and we've managed to connect so many dots in this one subject that should have just been, talking about the duende and then shutting the book. But I mean, we have literally connected so many dots onto what these things could be that I think the correlation there is that, this is something whenever I say I want to believe a lot. There's certain things I probably don't want to believe in. But this is something I genuinely want to believe, and I would hope that if there's something out there that is cryptid in nature or mysterious in nature like this, or as John said, mystical and Wiccan and of Celtic lore, and something that spans across it, that's something I would, certainly say that kind of belongs in our world. I think that it belongs in our world. I don't think it doesn't not belong in our world. But that's the beauty of it too, is that we're able to spread that word. So, guys, anything to close up with, or anything y'all want to say before I start wrapping it up?
Oh yeah, I also wanted to thank Casey for this. Like, this is a very interesting topic, and I'm really glad to have learned a lot about the duende.
Yeah, I feel like you
Yeah,
could
this was
spend
great.
days and days on this subject and not crack
Yeah.
all the lore and details and history that's associated with this subject. So it's really interesting and fun.
Mhm.
Mhm. I think that if and when we go to the river house next, we try to maybe summon one, because that's there's not very many lights out there. There's not very it's kind of secluded, and
So I said I was going to wrap it up, and I am. But whenever I was actually going through by myself, the River House actually stated that it was a forest spirit on the Spirit Talker app, and it mentioned a lot of things about nature. And then one thing I actually, whenever Christy and I were talking about at length about the River House, was how all of us experienced something. I believe, the feeling that I got was not that we were dealing with anything like, ghost or anything like that. If anything, it was heavily residual and the house had memory. But I also felt like if there was something there, it was something older than what we probably perceived. And I don't mean like demon or anything like that, just something. And it was funny that, and it's so weird how this is kind of tying everything together, is that I think I even told you guys when we were there, I was like, I don't get bad vibes. I just get like it's having fun with us. It's very mischievous and it's funny, which is not unlike anything that we've talked about tonight. So I think, John, you hit the nail on the head. I think whenever we go back to the River House, we look at the idea of this possibly being a forest spirit or duende.
Yeah, I'd be up to investigate that aspect a lot more.
Oh yeah, yeah. And if you remember, the ground was very soft there. So and again, I think that we kind of put this on our docket for things that we want to do out in the field. I think that this should be probably a field investigative episode. Maybe we do drive to North Carolina one day and just go and see what we can see.
Yeah, I'd be up for it.
sounds good.
All right. Christy, anything else?
Nope, just again, thanks to Casey for a really good topic.
Yep.
Thanks, guys.
Casey's the shining star. He's the moon in my eyes.
Make me blush.
Oh gosh. All right, guys. Well, we're gonna go ahead and wrap it up tonight. But if you are tuning in, I don't know how many viewers we had. My OBS chat has been kind of silent, just because I don't think it connected. I think it's connected to my other one, which is Captain Bowie. I did have Traveling Fools on YouTube, so always a big thank you to Traveling Fools. Check out their podcast, Abby Normal. As we go on and we figure out the kinks on OBS, I'm sure it's going to get a lot more streamlined, a lot better, and we're going to sound better. Which we went to a stream browser app, and it was an absolute disaster. Even though on paper it should have been way easier. That's okay, that's fine, but we made up for it tonight. As always, I'm Doug, and we had John, Christy, Greg, and Casey, who are the full Wendibros. I'd like to thank you all for tuning in. If you do watch us at a later date, check us out. We are on YouTube. We are on TikTok. We are on Kick. We are on Instagram. We are on Facebook. I'm not sure what else I'm missing, but I'm sure I'm missing something. But we're on everything. We are close to 2,000 followers. For the Wendibros, and we have a lot of amazing projects coming up. And just to let these guys know, I did talk to Saucers Over Appalachia. They're excited to have us back. They've had a few people asking if we're going to be back. So John and I and Christy had a blast there last year. So hopefully Casey and Greg will be there too. But I'm sure it's going to be as.
Oh, I'm excited to go.
It's a lot of fun. It's a lot of fun, and we, and maybe I'm being overly prideful about it, but I would, and John can correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm pretty sure that we were probably the busiest booth there quite a few times during that day.
Yeah, we really were. I mean, there were times where we had five or six people crowded around us, and they were all trying to talk about different things, and it was really awesome.
Yeah, which we still have a case in West Virginia that we got to investigate, which was the Man on Fire case, which I managed to map that out. So one of these days we may hop in the truck and go to West Virginia and just see what we can see out there. Because I'd like to get back to her, and I always like to do that before we go there, just so we can say, hey, did we or did we not? The interesting thing about that is if we're going into Fae and Celtic, is that what I found on there is that a lot of it attributes to what we call a will-o'-the-wisp out there in West Virginia.
Mm-hmm.
So that could be a possibility. And again, it sounds like Kentucky's a really weird place. We've been invited out to Kentucky more than a few times. And eventually, like John said before we went live, whenever we get that paranormal money rolling in, we'll probably have more freedom and money to actually go out there and enjoy these things, because that stuff ain't cheap. But yeah, so Land Between Lakes, we've been invited out there. We've been invited out to a few haunted houses out that way. But this is the stuff that I love, especially the Duende, because it doesn't just have to do with aliens or ghosts, even though it could be spiritual, but it's something different, and that's what the Wendibros are. We're something different. We're the anime of the paranormal investigators, so, and we had to thank Rick for that analogy. So, but yeah, that's all I've got for tonight. Unless you guys have anything, I'm gonna call it quits on this episode of the Dark Signal Live.
No, I'm all good. Everyone have a good night.
Absolutely.
Good.
Yep.
Have a good night.
Thanks. Have a great one.
Y'all have a good night. And yeah, check us out. Watch us and follow our stuff. We want it that paranormal money. All right. See y'all. Have a good night.
Yeah, let us know what you think.
Yeah.